Good evening. This is All India Radio. I'm Anuja Kumar, and with me is Aditi Lumba with the evening news. The headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says no country immune to effect of global disaster in present time. Need to take quick and decisive steps to stop second peak of coronavirus, says Prime Minister during Chief Ministers' meet on COVID-19 surge. Prime Minister calls for provision of micro-containment zones with emphasis on test, track and treat. Health Ministry says 150% surge in COVID-19 cases in 70 districts of 16 states. Over 3.51 lakh doses of COVID-19 vaccine administered in the country so far. No railway station being handed over to private sector. Ownership to remain with railways, government informs Lok Sabha. Leaders of several political parties step up campaigning in poll-bound states and the Union Territory. Trinamool Congress releases its election manifesto. In women's cricket, India lose to South Africa by 5 wickets in fifth and final ODI in Lucknow. Concede series 1-4. As the nation fights the COVID-19 pandemic, we begin with a message of precaution to stay safe and protected by following these 3 simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing, focus on hand and face hygiene. And now the news in detail. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said the COVID-19 pandemic taught us that no country is immune to the effect of global disasters in an interdependent and interconnected world. The Prime Minister was speaking at the opening ceremony of International Conference on Disaster Resilient Infrastructure through video conferencing today.
We are witnessing an event that is being termed a once-in-a-100-year disaster. COVID-19 pandemic has taught us that in an interdependent and interconnected world, no country, rich or poor, in the east or west, north or south, is immune to the effect of global disasters.
The Prime Minister called for fostering a global ecosystem that supports innovation in all parts of the world and its transfer to places that are most in need. Mr. Modi expressed hope that the year 2021 promises to be a year of swift recovery from the pandemic.
The year 2021 promises to be a year of swift recovery from the pandemic. The lessons from the pandemic, however, must not be forgotten. They apply to not only public health disasters, but other disasters as well.
The Prime Minister emphasized that cooperation is a must for ensuring the resilience of the global system. He said it will take sustained and concerted efforts to mitigate climate change. Prime Minister Narendra Modi today interacted with the chief ministers of various states regarding the COVID-19 situation through video conference. During the interaction, the Prime Minister stressed the need to take quick and decisive steps to stop the emerging second peak of corona immediately.
अगर हम इस बढ़ती हुई महामारी को यही नहीं रोकेंगे तो देशव्यापी आउटब्रेक की स्थिति बन सकती। हमें कोरोना की उस उभरती हुई सेकंड पीक को तुरंत रोकना ही होगा और इसके लिए हमें क्विक और डिसाइसिव कदम उठाने होंगे। कई जगह देखने को मिल रहा है कि मास्क को लेकर अब स्थानीय प्रशासन द्वारा भी उतनी गंभीरता नहीं दिखाई जा रही। मेरा आग्रह है कि स्थानीय स्तर पर गवर्नेंस को लेकर जो भी दिक्कत हैं, उनकी पड़ताल, उनकी समीक्षा की जानी और उन दिक्कतों को सुलझाया जाना, ये मैं समझता हूं वर्तमान में बहुत आवश्यक है।
The Prime Minister expressed concern about the high test positivity rate in Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh and rising cases in Punjab. 70 districts of the country witnessed 150% rise in the last few weeks. Addressing the chief ministers, the Prime Minister said that more than 96% of the cases in India have recovered and India is having one of the lowest fatality rates in the world.
कोरोना के खिलाफ देश की लड़ाई को अब 1 साल से ज्यादा हो रहा है। इस दौरान भारत के लोगों ने कोरोना का जिस तरह मुकाबला किया है, उसका दुनिया में उदाहरण के रूप में चर्चा हो रही है, लोग उसको उदाहरण के रूप में प्रस्तुत करते हैं। आज भारत में 96% से ज्यादा केसेस रिकवर हो चुके हैं। फैटेलिटी रेट में भी भारत दुनिया के उन देशों की लिस्ट में है जहां ये रेट सबसे कम है।
The Prime Minister noted the need for provision of micro-containment zones. He stressed the need to be serious about test, track and treat, as has been done for the last 1 year. He insisted on more RT-PCR tests in states which give more emphasis to rapid antigen tests like Kerala, Odisha, Chhattisgarh and Uttar Pradesh. Mr. Modi remarked that there is a need to identify mutants of coronavirus and assess their effects. He lauded the continually increased pace of vaccination in the country and the vaccination rates crossing more than 3 million vaccinations in a single day. He also warned to take the problem of vaccine doses wastage very seriously. He noted the vaccine waste in Telangana, Andhra Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh to the tune of 10%. He urged to immediately correct the drawbacks of planning and governance at the local level to reduce vaccine waste.
The government today said that 70 districts in 16 states have seen an increase in COVID-19 cases by 150% in the last 15 days. Briefing media in New Delhi this evening, Secretary in Health Ministry Rajesh Bhushan said 60% of all active cases are concentrated in Maharashtra. He said Punjab's positivity rate is now 6.8%, which is worrying and shows that COVID-19 appropriate behavior is not being followed. Mr. Bhushan said there has been renewed focus on test, track, treat and vaccinate. The Health Secretary said more than 3.51 lakh doses of COVID-19 have been administered in the country so far. He said more than 50,000 public and private hospitals are functioning as COVID vaccination centres. Haryana Chief Minister Manohar Lal has said that COVID-19 vaccination camps have been set up at Kundli border for virus containment. He said that the vaccination at these camps has begun from today and farmers have already started getting COVID vaccination. Sikkim Chief Minister Prem Singh Tamang has announced a night curfew in the state after 10 p.m. covering restaurants, bars, discos, pubs and gyms, while vehicular movement will not be allowed after 10:30 p.m. with immediate effect. The Chief Minister has appealed to people to regularly wear masks and continue to follow social distancing and COVID-19 protocols. With 7 new cases of COVID-19 reported in Sikkim yesterday, total cases stood at 6,191, of which 44 were active.
In Nagaland, 7 people from Kohima recovered from COVID-19 today. The number of active cases has declined to 7. The total confirmed cases remained at 12,225 with no report of COVID-19 positive case, while the recovered cases in the state stands at 11,973. The Union Territory of Puducherry is witnessing a sudden spike of COVID-19 cases. 52 more persons tested positive for the virus today. The infection was below 30 for last few days. We have a report.
Of the 1,290 swab tests taken, 52 tested positive for the virus. 18 persons were discharged from the hospital. Presently, 85 persons are being treated in Puducherry region, 9 in Karaikal, 4 in Mahi region. Another 116 positive cases are under home isolation. The case fatality rate in the UT is 1.68% and the recovery rate stands at 97.79%. As many as 32,603 persons were given COVID vaccine in the UT so far. This includes 14,989 healthcare workers, 5,579 frontline workers and 12,035 general public. Chandramohan, Air News, Puducherry.
Karnataka Chief Minister B.S. Yediyurappa has said that test, track and treat formula will be intensified in the state to curb the speed of COVID-19 pandemic. He was speaking to media persons after a video interaction with the Prime Minister today. The Chief Minister informed that Prime Minister's suggestions today during the video conference will be implemented immediately. COVID testing and vaccination will be increased, especially in Bengaluru urban, Kalburgi and Bidar, where the caseload has increased.
Union Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan today assured the Lok Sabha that COVID preventive vaccines will not be exported to other countries at the expense of countrymen. The Health Minister said out of the total world's vaccination drive, 36% vaccination has been covered in India alone. Replying to demands for grants under the control of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Dr. Harshvardhan said that the government at centre believes in world is one family. The government has said that the Railways Ministry is not going to hand over railway stations to the private sector and the ownership will remain with the railways. This was stated by the Railways Minister Piyush Goyal in a written reply in the Lok Sabha today. He said Ministry has constituted a group of secretaries to expedite redevelopment of 50 stations under public partnership mode. Lok Sabha today passed demands for grants related to various ministries and departments in respect of the Union Budget 2021-22 by applying guillotine. The House also passed Appropriation Number 2 Bill 2021.
Campaigning has intensified in poll-bound states of Assam, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Union Territory of Puducherry for the upcoming assembly elections. West Bengal will go to polls in 8 phases, while Assam will be witnessing 3-phase elections this time. 47 assembly constituencies in Assam and 30 assembly constituencies of West Bengal will go to polls on the 27th of this month during the first phase. Senior BJP leader and Prime Minister Narendra Modi will address rallies at Assam and West Bengal tomorrow. Mr. Modi will address a rally at Karimganj in Assam. In a tweet, the Prime Minister said, Assam has witnessed positive changes across various sectors over the last 5 years and the NDA seeks people's blessings to continue the development agenda. Meanwhile, Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath addressed a rally at Lanka in Assam. Senior BJP leader and Assam Chief Minister Sarbanand Sonowal attended an election rally at Pathsala, while convener of NEDA Himanta Biswa Sarma addressed a poll meeting at Behrampur. Congress MP Pradyut Bordoloi held rallies at Tinsukia district in Assam. In West Bengal, Prime Minister Modi will address a rally in Purulia tomorrow. Mr. Modi said across West Bengal there is a desire for change and BJP's agenda of good governance is striking a chord among the people. Today was also the last date for withdrawal of candidatures in both the states for the second phase. 39 assembly constituencies of Assam and 30 assembly constituencies of West Bengal will go to polls in the second phase on the 1st of April. On the other hand, the process of filing of nominations is underway for the third phase of assembly elections in these 2 states. 40 assembly constituencies of Assam and 31 assembly constituencies of West Bengal will go to polls in the third phase on the 6th of April. Assam BJP President Ranjit Kumar Das filed nomination papers at Patacharkuchi. Several Congress AIUDF candidates also filed nomination for the third phase. Filing of nomination papers is also underway for the single-phase assembly elections in Kerala, Tamil Nadu, as well as the Union Territory of Puducherry to be held on 6th of April. In Kerala, campaigns and election conventions by major fronts are in full swing across the state. We have a report.
As part of the election campaign of LDF, Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan kick-started the statewide campaign in Wayanad today. The various LDF allies are also actively conducting widespread campaigns and public conventions throughout the state. The UDF is also active in the field of election campaign and is expected to release its election manifesto on Saturday. In NDA, the BJP has declared the names of candidates contesting in 4 constituencies including Karakotam today. The party is actively campaigning across the state. Meanwhile, in Kerala, the elections for the 3 vacant Rajya Sabha seats will be held on April 12th. The polling will take place from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and the votes will be counted around 5 p.m. on the same day. The polling will take place strictly adhering to COVID guidelines. Mayusha, for AR News from Thiruvananthapuram.
In Tamil Nadu, more than 2,000 contestants, including 362 women and a transgender, filed their nominations today. The counting of votes in the 4 states and the Union Territory will take place on the 2nd of May.
Trinamool Congress released its election manifesto highlighting 10 major promises for the ensuing assembly polls in West Bengal. It was released by the TMC chief and West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee in Kolkata this evening. In the manifesto, the party promises to generate 5 lakh employment opportunities, ensure minimum annual income of 6,000 rupees for every family belonging to general category. Introducing a student credit card of 10 lakh rupees at only 4% interest, where the government will be the guarantor, is also mentioned. The Election Commission's panel set up to examine the poll expenditure limit of candidates is expected to submit its report by the end of this month. The Commission had constituted a 4-member committee in this regard. This was stated by the Law and Justice Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad in a written reply in the Lok Sabha today.
Foreign Affairs Minister of Kuwait, Dr. Ahmad Nasser Al Mohammed Al Sabah, arrived in New Delhi this evening for a 2-day visit to India. He will meet External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar tomorrow. Bangladesh is celebrating the historic event of its liberation from Pakistan and the birth centenary of its founding father, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. To mark the occasion, a 10-day-long celebration kicked off in Bangladesh today. More from our AIR special correspondent in Dhaka.
17th March is a historic day for Bangladesh as it marks the birth anniversary of the founding father of the country, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. This year also marks 50 years of the liberation of Bangladesh from Pakistan. The 10-day-long celebration started today with the birth anniversary of Sheikh Mujib, and it will conclude on the Liberation Day of Bangladesh on 26th March. The main function was held at the parade ground in Dhaka, where the President of Maldives, Ibrahim Mohammed Solih, was the chief guest. The outdoors programs are being organized only with a very limited number of invited guests in view of the surge in COVID-19 cases in the country. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will join the celebration as chief guest on the concluding day on 26th March. Rajesh Jha, AIR News, Dhaka.
Finance Ministry today clarified that there is no change on concessional rate of tax on certain interest income or foreign portfolio investment FPIs. There were reports in certain section of media that concessional tax rate of 5% has been withdrawn. Banaras Hindu University BHU has denied claims that Executive Director of Reliance Industries Limited, Nita Ambani, will be visiting a lecturer at the university. The press release issued by the PRO of the university said that neither any official decision has been taken nor any administrative order was issued by the university administration regarding appointment of Ms. Nita Ambani as visiting professor in any department or giving her the responsibility of teaching. This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle at AIR News Alert.
Now here is a review of proceedings in Parliament today. First from Rajya Sabha, writer is Namita Tiwari of PTI. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has said India's reputation as pharmacy of the world stands reinforced the way it reached out to other countries in the midst of a global crisis by supplying COVID-19 vaccines to 72 nations. Making a statement on Vaccine Maitri initiative in the Rajya Sabha today, he said the supply of Made in India vaccine to 72 nations when the world was reeling under COVID-19 pandemic prompted global leaders and world citizens extend warmth to India and its citizens. Even as the COVID pandemic was in full fury, there were already global demands for India's pharmaceutical and medical capabilities, which could be met largely due to the extraordinary ramp-up of India's COVID-related capabilities, the minister said. Talking about the low fatality rates and the high recovery rates, he said, our reputation as the pharmacy of the world has been reinforced. So indeed has the faith in Make in India. But more than the vaccines, New Delhi's policies and conduct have emerged as a source of strength for the stressed and vulnerable nations of the world. They can see that there is at least one major nation that truly believes in making vaccines accessible and affordable to others in dire need. He said Vaccine Maitri began in the immediate neighborhood, starting with the Maldives, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka and Myanmar, as also Mauritius and Seychelles, and thereafter to the Gulf. The minister said, we have supplied Made in India vaccines to 72 nations across geographies. Mr. Jaishankar said there was an external beneficial impact of India's capabilities and it could meet the spiking requirements of hydroxychloroquine, paracetamol and other relevant drugs across the world. The minister said, we supplied 150 nations with medicines, 82 of them as grants. As our own production of masks, PPEs and diagnostic kits grew, we made them available to other nations. This generous approach was also extended to the Vande Bharat mission. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision has provided an overarching framework to make India's goodwill meaningful in terms of practical initiatives and activities that reflected in its humanitarian assistance and disaster responses, whether in Yemen, Nepal, Mozambique or Fiji. It is this outlook of human-centric global cooperation that is the driving force of Vaccine Maitri, he said. The External Affairs Minister said New Delhi also offered to enhance cold chain and storage capacities for the delivery of vaccines. This approach is not only in keeping with our age-old tradition of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. Rajya Sabha today took up the discussion on the working of the Ministry of Railways. Sujit Kumar of BJD said the government has increased budgetary allocation for capital expenditure in the railway sector. Ram Vichar Netam of BJP said the rail accidents have decreased. Replying to the debate, Railway Minister Piyush Goyal said over 64 lakh migrant labourers reached home safely through Shramik trains during the COVID pandemic. He said free meals and free packaged drinking water were provided in the Shramik trains. The minister said every state was given the number of trains they demanded. He said trains were converted into isolation wards on suggestion from the Prime Minister to provide an option for isolating COVID-infected patients. Earlier, Rajya Sabha Chairman M. Venkaiah Naidu accepted the resignation of the nominated member Swaparna Das Gupta, who tendered his resignation from the Upper House of Parliament yesterday. During question hour earlier, Housing and Urban Affairs Minister Hardeep Singh Puri said that we are now going to relocate to a new Parliament building where we will have enough space. The government has obtained necessary approvals for building a new Parliament by 2022 and for the Central Vista Avenue. During the stage of building a new Central Secretariat complex, some of the buildings will be demolished, Mr. Puri said. He said the idea is to bring all offices in the Central Secretariat complex, which will have space for 50,000 people working and connected through an underground shuttle tunnel so that transportation is very easy. The minister said each step will be taken with timeline, cost estimate, among others. Mr. Puri said Tata Projects Limited had won the tender for the construction of the new Parliament building. During question hour, Petroleum Minister Dharmendra Pradhan said states like Maharashtra should reduce taxes on fuel to give relief to consumers and remained non-committal on cutting central taxes. Minister of State for Home Affairs G. Kishan Reddy said the government has sought inputs from various quarters for criminal law reforms, including sedition, and has set up a committee for it.
And now review of proceedings in Lok Sabha. Writer is Kumar Rakesh of PTI. The Lok Sabha was adjourned for 2 hours today as a mark of respect to Ram Swarup Sharma, a BJP Member of Parliament from Mandi constituency who passed away. The House also paid tributes to Manohar Lal Saini, who died on 8th of March. As soon as the House proceedings resumed, the opposition Congress urged the centre to resolve the ongoing farmers' protests over 3 agricultural laws. Raising the issue of the ongoing farmers' protests in the capital, Ravneet Singh Bittu of the Congress pleaded with Speaker Om Birla to invite the leaders of all political parties to find a solution. Manish Tiwari of the Congress claimed that COVID-19 vaccination drive is not going on properly and alleged that more stress is given on the export rather than inoculation of the country's citizens. However, Rajiv Ranjan Singh of JDU strongly refuted the charge and commended Prime Minister Narendra Modi for controlling the COVID-19 pandemic. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar made a similar statement on Vaccine Maitri in Lok Sabha also. Initiating the debate on demand for grants for the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Mr. Manish Tiwari demanded that India must take the initiative as the current head of the Executive Board of the WHO to hold China responsible for spreading coronavirus across the globe. Participating in the debate, Rajiv Ranjan Singh of the JDU said, the Prime Minister has spoken to all the states for their suggestions and tried to solve their problems. Mr. Singh said Modi government, by running scores of trains, ensured that lakhs of migrant workers reached home within days of declaration of lockdown. He also defended the government's decision to export vaccines to other nations. Mr. Singh criticized Congress for allegedly doubting the efficacy of Indian vaccines and spreading rumours about them. He asked Mr. Tiwari not to create panic and said there is no shortage of Indian vaccines and everyone will get the vaccine phase-wise. Participating in a discussion on demands for grants of the Health Ministry, YSRCP member Sanjeev Kumar Singari argued that vaccination is a waste of money as universal vaccination is neither possible nor warranted. He also noted that crises like COVID-19 occur once in 100 years, so the government should not give much importance to the coronavirus pandemic. The Lok Sabha today passed the Appropriation Bill 2021-22, authorizing the government to draw funds from the Consolidated Fund of India for its working as well as implementation of its programs and schemes. This completes two-thirds of the exercise for approval of the budget for 2021-22. The appropriation bill authorizing payment and appropriation of specified sums from the Consolidated Fund of India for 2021-22 was introduced by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. The bill was later approved by voice vote. The Lok Sabha earlier discussed demands for grants of different ministries including Railways, Education and Health. The appropriation bill was taken into consideration and passed by the lower house of Parliament. The Lok Sabha will now discuss the finance bill, which essentially contains the government's tax proposals. Once the finance bill is passed, the budget exercise is complete. Both appropriation and finance bills are classified as money bills, which do not require the explicit consent of the Rajya Sabha. The upper house only discusses them and returns the bill. After passing the finance bill, it enters the statute as a Finance Act. Thus, the final budget gets approved. That's all in the Parliament Review.
Equity benchmarks fell for the fourth straight session today amid weak global markets ahead of the Federal Reserve policy meet. The rupee ended flat against the US currency. A report from the Business World.
The Sensex at Bombay Stock Exchange slipped 562 points or 1.1% to close below the 50,000 level at 49,802. The Nifty at National Stock Exchange fell 189 points or 1.3% to settle at 14,721. In intraday trade, Brent crude prices were trading around $67.40 per barrel. And at the forex market, the rupee ended flat at 72.54 per dollar against the US dollar. Anubha Rohatgi for AIR News.
In women's cricket, South Africa defeated India by 5 wickets in the fifth and the final one-day international in Lucknow today to clinch the series by 4-1. South Africa overhauled the 189-run target with 10 balls to spare. Earlier, India were bowled out by 188 for 9 in 49.3 overs after the visitors opted to bowl first. Mithali Raj scored 79 not out. International Shooting Sport Federation ISSF Shooting World Cup 2021 will begin from tomorrow at the Dr. Karni Singh shooting ranges in Delhi. More than 300 shooters from as many as 43 countries are expected to participate in the season's first World Cup being held in all the three disciplines, shotgun, rifle and pistol. The event will end on 29th of this month. The ISSF World Cup will be decisive for Tokyo 2020 qualification regarding the world ranking.
Now let us take a look at the weather forecast for tomorrow. National capital Delhi is likely to have mist in the morning. The temperature will hover between 18 and 34 degrees Celsius. Mumbai will have mainly clear sky. Minimum temperature will be 22 degrees Celsius, while the maximum is expected to be around 35 degrees. Chennai is expected to have partly cloudy sky. Kolkata will have partly clear sky. The city will observe minimum temperature of 24 degrees Celsius and a maximum of around 37 degrees. Srinagar will have partly cloudy sky, becoming generally cloudy towards afternoon or evening or night. Jammu will have mainly clear sky, becoming partly cloudy towards afternoon or evening. Leh is expected to have partly cloudy sky, with minimum temperature around -2 degrees Celsius, while the maximum will be around 10 degrees. Gilgit will have generally cloudy sky. Temperature will hover between 7 and 22 degrees Celsius. Muzaffarabad is likely to have mainly clear sky, becoming partly cloudy towards afternoon or evening. Dehradun will have partly cloudy sky, becoming generally cloudy towards afternoon or evening or night. And Chandigarh will have generally cloudy sky with temperature likely to hover between 16 and 33 degrees Celsius. And now, before we end the bulletin, the headlines once again. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says no country immune to effect of global disaster in present time. Need to take quick and decisive steps to stop second peak of coronavirus, says Prime Minister during Chief Ministers' meet on COVID-19 surge. Prime Minister calls for provision of micro-containment zones with emphasis on test, track and treat. Health Ministry says 150% surge in COVID-19 cases in 70 districts of 16 states. Over 3.51 lakh doses of COVID-19 vaccine administered in the country so far. No railway station being handed over to private sector. Ownership to remain with railways, government informs Lok Sabha. Leaders of several political parties step up campaigning in poll-bound states and the Union Territory. Trinamool Congress releases its election manifesto. And in women's cricket, India lose to South Africa by 5 wickets in 5th and final ODI in Lucknow. Concede series 1-4. And with that, we end the evening news. Good night.